Okay, I'll do that one more time. I'm going to do that in like 1 second. I'm leaving. I'll be back in, guys. This
Okay.
means being live streamed. Got it. Leave.
Well, in any event, we're calling this degrees of separation. And I just realized I haven't started recording. Okay, got to do that too. We are calling this degrees of separation because this morning, just this morning, I asked Bill Johnson what he wanted to talk about, and he said, I want to find out how we can reach out to, I don't know exactly, I should
majorities. Reach out to the majorities.
Reach out to majorities.
Since whites are no longer the majority, reach out to the collective majorities in this country.
Okay, to see how we can have basically a new Lloyd.
Hi,
You're
guys.
there. You're there.
Good.
Lloyd, I want you to meet Sean Donahue, Lynette Beavers, and William Daniel Johnson. Lloyd M. Kelly, but what does the M stand for, Lloyd?
Merritt. MERRITT.
My eyes, stop video, end the video.
I told you. Now, don't I look like The Rock?
Yeah, you do look like a rock. That's correct.
Okay, see, he's got jokes. Let's see how well they work for him during this discussion. But let's see.
Okay,
In any event, Lloyd Merritt Kelly ran for Congress last year. He was running against Troy Carter to replace Cedric Richmond, who had accepted an appointment in the Biden administration. Lloyd is originally, well, I don't know about originally, but he is most famously from Chicago, where he was a leading activist for AIDS reform. And he did some amazing work up there. And this is an interesting experiment. We've never done anything like this recently, but I'm hoping that we will get, there are two Latin words here. We can have a duel, which is an honorable confrontation, or it can break down into a bellum. I don't know if many people realize that those two Latin words are etymologically identical. Duellum and bellum come from the same Indo-European root. A duel is a one-on-one combat of gentlemen, a trial by combat, and a bellum is a free-for-all. And so the question that I think is interesting, I discussed with Lloyd when he was first running for Congress last year. I asked him, would Black people accept reparations in land, reparations for slavery in land, as opposed to cash, as a final settlement of all debts arising from slavery? And that is kind of where I want the duel to begin. Gentlemen, throw down your gloves. I am standing up there in the tower to maintain honor, and I want to see what you all are going to do to each other.
Well, first of all, let me say that I think it'll probably be more like shooting the breeze as opposed to a duel or a bellum. I think there's going to be a lot of agreement in a lot of things. Do you know why? Because Lloyd is anti-establishment and I am anti-establishment, and we're going to find a lot of common grounds, I believe. It's just like Antifa is anti-establishment and I'm anti-establishment. But if I go to Antifa and say, hey, I'm anti-establishment too, they'd club me over the head with the bike chain. So I think maybe it's not going to be the same thing with Lloyd.
Oh, no, I agree with you. And I thank you for saying that. One of the things that I would like to ask is that we establish a couple of rules. When we talk about reparations, I want to be very clear that this is not directed, my position on reparations is not directed at white people. It's not. It is not. It is not in any way an indictment of white people. It is directed to the United States government that codified laws that allowed people to put people that look like me into slavery. So I want to be very clear when we're discussing this. I'm talking about the United States government always.
Okay, let me ask you a question. I used to tour the country before the internet with a black nationalist by the name of Robert Brock. He was a back to Africa black nationalist. And
Okay.
we appeared with Roy Innes one time, and he says, "You don't get reparations because you're from Jamaica. You're not American. You're not historically American, and so you don't qualify for reparations." But what you just said, people that look like me, that maybe means that you're considering it for a broader group of people than.
Oh, no,
Robert
no,
Brock.
no, 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 no. Let's be very clear on that. Let me just quickly do a little bit of education. There are all kinds of black people, but I identify as a descendant of an American freedman, where that Barack Obama is black, but he is not a descendant of an American freedman. Michelle, Sasha, Malia are. So when we're talking, my position on other black people is this: I didn't make the choice to come here. It was made for me. If you're an immigrant from, say, West Indies or Caribbean or South Africa, you made the choice to come here. And with television and internet and every other thing, you knew exactly what you were coming to. Just saying.
Okay, let me ask you a question, and maybe this is a little bit off point, but I want to ask you the question. The answer is what your answer would have been 25 years ago, and what your answer is today. 25 years ago, I met with some clients. They were a black man and a woman, and he came in and he'd written a book, and the book was called Sins of Our Fathers, Curse of Their Mothers. A curse of our mothers, sins of our fathers, curse of our mothers. And he says, Mr. Johnson, do you know what that means? And I said, no. He says, well, my people came over here in the 1630s, 1600s. When did yours come over? I said, well, I came over in 1600 also. Had says, well, what happened is my ancestors, some of them were white, but they had intercourse with slaves. And that's why I'm black. I'm not white, because the sins of my fathers married or interracially married or mixed with the curse of the black person. So both of those two black people, the husband and the wife, thought that it was a curse. Their mother's side was a curse because they were black, and it was a sin of their fathers to mix with them. He said, we'd have been white if they didn't have done that. So my question is to you: how would you have answered that, responded to them 25 years ago, when the nation was a lot different than it is now, and how would you respond to it today?
Well,
would it be the same or would it be different?
First, I come from a very progressive family, and I'll just say that yesterday I'm working on a campaign with someone, and yesterday accused me of, and I'm using a word black people use, you guys don't necessarily know, but it's called bougie, and it basically means that I sound like I'm white, and I think like I'm white because I came from a, quote, privileged, unquote, background. Well, first, I didn't come from a privileged background. I came from an educated background. And my parents were always very clear that being black or where we come from is who we are. My mother taught us from a very early age. A descendants of American freedmen, not her term, that's kind of been coined recently, but black people as we knew them then were really the children of the American dream, if you think about it, because it's a bunch of people coming together and creating children that was born out of this land. Now, I'm not discounting Native Americans, but I am saying, based on the America that we talk about, and for all intents and purposes, there's really one big discussion, because Native Americans, in many cases, have their own countries. They have their own sovereignty. But when we're having this discussion, we're talking about black and white. So literally, based on what you talked about, I am the child of the American dream.
Okay, that I think is a very good attitude for you to have, and I think that if that was current among all Black people, there'd be a lot less problems in the Black community, because that elevates you to a higher level than a lot of what the ghetto Blacks are today. I mean, you've probably read in the paper, and I've seen it, where in LA they attacked and destroyed some Union Pacific railroads and just took all the stuff, just took all sorts of TVs and just trashed everything, and train robbery. Now, I think that if they had your attitude, that wouldn't have happened.
I disagree, because I think that my attitude, and I get in trouble in my community for saying this all the time. We are taught, we are socialized as a community, descendants of American freedmen, to think emotionally. I don't think emotionally. I'm very logical in my thought, but I think there's some things that that we all have to agree on. First, when we talk about reparations, before we discuss reparations, we have to talk about what it's for and who it's for. We've done that. American descendants of descendants of American freedmen. We've agreed. I don't think there's any disagreement on that with anybody on conversation. And also, what is it for? Because see, I think anytime you use the word race, and I'm generalizing, around white people, oh, it's going to be a fight because you said the word race, and we have to deal with white guilt. So we can't get to the issue. We have to deal with white guilt. So I want to say that that reparations, once again, is not about an apology from white people for the horrors of slavery. In my opinion, it is about 400 years of unpaid labor. All I need you to do is to give me the money that, or to pay me, not, and that's another word. You're not giving me anything. For all those folks that are listening that says, do you want me to give you money? No, you are paying me for 400 years of unpaid labor. So
okay, let me ask
sure, go ahead.
A question. You've talked about the term freedman, and I think you said freedman, not freeman. There's in the white nationalist movement, there's a concept of the freeman, like without the D on it. Freeman Institute was founded by Cleon Skousen, and there's a lot of organizations called the Freemen. Free men. I think you're saying freedmen, which means you were slaves and they were freed as slaves. Is that what you mean by that definition?
Emancipated.
Oh, absolutely. And I'm glad you bring that point up. See, in my community, I'm supposed to be ashamed of the fact that my ancestors, my recent ancestors, were enslaved. Okay, it was really funny. I went to tour one of the help me out, Charles. The plantations in in the New Orleans area. And so now they've turned it into the Whitney plantation into a museum to slavery. So the first thought that I had when I walked in, or we went in, is that our tour guide was a like 20-year-old white girl. And I thought, this is a museum to educate people about slavery, yet the person that's leading the tour is a white person. Okay, that's fine.
Well, let me ask you a question. Was she pretty?
Actually, she was not very bright, but pretty.
Okay, all right. Well, that's enough. That's enough for me. Good for her.
Okay. And so, as we got to, I would question her about certain things. And the first thing they said was that we don't use the term slaves, we use the term enslaved people. Because that means that these people had a history, they had lives outside of, they would be, all this stuff. I'm saying, excuse me, you can call it anything you want to. The point is, let me walk off that plantation and some white person didn't say it was okay, and I'm probably going to get hung that day.
Yeah, but she probably is getting paid by the word. And that's why it was better for her to put in 2 words instead of 1.
Could be. I don't know. But my point is, I'm not ashamed of where I come from, because when I don't want to, I was reading some stuff about you, Bill. I'm just going to be honest. And I understand that you're a nationalist and not a supremacist. You prefer the word nationalism rather than supremacist. I like that because number one, supremacist sort of indicates that there's inherent inferiority. And I will say that what the blood that runs through me, the DNA that I have in my body has survived capture in Africa, the Middle Passage, slavery, Jim Crow, prison industrial complex, redlining, and about 20,000 other things that you can think about. Yet here I am on a conversation with what some people would argue one of the most prominent nationalists in the country.
Right, but I think you left out in that long, distinguished history, you left out a resident of Chicago under the Chicago government, municipal government. That's probably the spookiest of them all.
We won't talk about that. We don't discuss that.
Okay, well, okay, let's get down to the brass tacks, the nitty gritty. Sure. You want reparations. I toured the country with a Black nationalist that he wanted reparations too, but he was a back to Africa Black. And I think it'll be a much easier sell to a lot of people. It says, sure, we'll give reparations. Sure, we'll give you land, but we want you guys to leave America and go back to Africa.
So
Comments.
Let me say this, not acceptable. And I'm probably going to, tomorrow my house, there's going to be crosses burning in front of my house, but I'm going to say this. Did anybody tell Jews to go back to Israel or back to Europe and Israel? They tell them to go back to Europe? No, they did not. So we're not even, but what I am willing to do, and the only thing that is important here is that we get paid for 400 years of oppression and unpaid labor. So again, not asking for an apology, I'm asking for a paycheck. So after that, what I choose to do with it is my business. It has nothing to do. One of the things about that frustrate me when I have this conversation with white persons is that they think that they get to tell me what to do. And that's because we're socialized that great white father understands everything and I don't understand anything. All I need you to do, pay me my money, and then we'll see if there's a Black ghetto in Chicago.
Okay, I guess, 30 years ago or so, Mr. Brock and I appeared on the Morton Downey Jr. show. And he was pushing back to Africa, and I was pushing back to Africa for the Blacks. And Morton Downey Jr. was just mean and mad and beating up on us. And his whole audience were mean and mad and ballyhooing and beating up on us. And then he opened it up for the conversations from the audience. And the first person to get up there was a kind of a Black man with one of those what is it called? Those no, it wasn't a turban, but it had the multicolored African colored flag.
I've never been to Africa, couldn't tell you. Go ahead.
Well, you see them a lot. They have the green and black and red hats or whatever. He was up there. He says, I'm going back to Africa tomorrow. Here's my passport, and I'm going. These guys are exactly right. And the whole audience was stunned. And Morton Downey Jr. could hardly catch his breath. He said, well, why would you want to do that? And the guy says, well, because I've got a warrant out for my arrest for murder, and I got to get out of this country. And so we were really happy, and then we were so deflated. So I think maybe it's true that it's an easier sell on people that we can tell what to do because they got in trouble with the law than someone like you who's successful. But I know this is kind of long-winded, but my approach is that I am willing to discuss reparations so long as it entails creating creating many white ethno-states. And so if that can be accomplished, I don't mind playing reparations if it gets the Black people on our side to help us achieve that, because I want a country that is made up of white people, not just an absence of Blacks, but absence of all the peoples of color. And the Blacks are a very powerful group right now in America and around the world. And if something can be hammered out so that the blacks become the allies of the whites to achieve white ethnostates. Boy, I'll open my checkbook
let me
right
ask you a question about that, Bill. So are you saying that there would, for Black people, because frankly, I just said earlier, I have never been to Africa and I'm certainly not moving there. So what I am willing to do is to create dual citizenship with Liberia, which historically I should have already had. Because when you talk about going to Africa, Africa is a continent, it's not a country. And we were trying to get to Liberia. So there's a relationship already there. But are you saying, would you be happy with two distinct geographical areas, one white, one Black in this country?
I think that this is an issue that has to be worked out. I would like Haiti back. Haiti was a French colony until the Black Haitians killed all the white colonists
because
there.
They enslaved them, Bill. If I
Okay.
come and move into your house and tell you you are now my butler or my maid or whatever, I'm probably going to wake up dead. Okay. So
did the white people mass murder blacks? No, they didn't. And so
but did
we're
the white
talking about
people,
mass murder of every
Bill,
white person in Haiti.
Bill, what were they fighting for? Why did the Haitians do that? Were the Haitians enslaved?
Yes,
were they
enslaved.
Okay, wait a minute, hold on, Bill. January 6th, 2021, we had white people attack our government because they were being told they have to wear a mask, and you're just wear a mask, not telling you have to work here or you have to do this many hours a day. We were just saying, get vaccinated and wear a mask. They're ready to burn the Capitol down. So please, we can have a great conversation, but let's not have one where you're here and I'm here. We're talking about equality, and you know damn well that the reason Haiti happened was because they were fighting for their freedom, much like the people that you think are the founders of this country.
I think that if you're going to take the position that because slavery existed, it's okay to slaughter every white person in a particular country, we're not going to get anywhere. What the Haitians did to the French is absolutely atrocious, and it cannot be defended by any level by a civilized person. What they did was absolutely despicable. And there were many French Haitians that wanted to free the Black Haitians, and those people were killed first.
But let me ask you this, and I'm not going to argue. I'm not going to defend the slaughter of anybody, but I will say this. You alluded to Black ghettos, and I was waiting for black on black crime, and how high the crime rates in the Black neighborhoods are. But here's the thing. Black people, we have our issues with violent crime, apparently. But when you do the research, you find out that people that are killing each other in our communities know each other. And I bring that up because that means they had a reason. So while slaughter is awful, at what point, after I've asked you, after I've told you, after I've asked you again, at what point do you think you have the right to breathe the same air that I do when you're holding me in slavery? You are raping my mother. I might be the product of a rape because of you. You are hanging me from a tree because I look at a white woman. Come on, really? So I'm not saying the violence is awful. But sometimes countries go to war because it's for the greater good. My freedom and the freedom of all human beings is probably for the greater good, Bill.
What you're stating there is a very good support for racial separation, because I don't want to live in a community where if you know each other and you have a dispute, that's grounds to kill each other.
You said blacks. Bill, I'm all for separation. I'm all for separation. But let's be clear. It wasn't Black people that got segregation. It was white people. that came in and put these huge highways through Black neighborhoods, calling it urban renewal. It was white folks that, and see, I'm not a conspiracy theorist, but just because I think I'm a little paranoid doesn't mean that somebody's not out to get me. So, I was just talking about this earlier today. We were talking about gentrification and what it was. I'm a licensed real estate agent in Louisiana, and I just took my fair housing. So, block busting is illegal. Does everybody know what block busting is? Okay, where you have a Black person go into a white neighborhood, buy a house, and then the realtor comes around and says, that Black family is moving in there. What's getting ready to happen to your, and everybody thought that's the right thing to do because that's just wrong. And, it's hindering the progress of Black people. Well, here's the thing. What that ushered in, those laws, it ushered in the back door, it ushered in gentrification. Because now what are white people doing? White people in every major urban area are going into the Black neighborhoods, buying the property and putting people that have been there for generations out.
I live in one of the most exclusive, expensive towns.
I've heard. When do I get my invitation
California
to come visit you and the 125 llamas?
And one of the most expensive towns in Los Angeles County. And where did they take the freeway through? Right through our town, and they ripped up $1 million homes. So I'm sure.
But let me ask you this: those $1 million homes, where were they located? Were they located in? Did they put it in the center of town, or did they put it on the water? Did they put it along the Pacific Ocean?
They put it.
I've been on the Highway 5.
They put it through some of the most expensive property there is.
Again, where was the property located, Bill? Was it in town or was it along the ocean?
It was in town.
Okay, because the I-5 is what, the 5? The 5 is along the ocean.
No. 5 is inland, goes through downtown LA. That's closer to where Bill lives. No, the 405 is closer to the ocean.
405. Okay, I'm sorry. I don't live in California. I live in LA. I live in Louisiana. We have lead in our water. Anyway, I'm just saying that.
Okay, that's fine. Let's get back to the nitty gritty. What can I do to get the Black people to support racial separation and white ethno-states of many different places, including Haiti?
Well, okay, so let's start with getting an understanding that most Black people believe in separation. I'm saying this. I don't know too many Black people that are racing out of our neighborhoods to go live in yours.
Then let's get this.
But see, here's the thing.
Let's make it work.
Right, exactly. I'm right there with you. I'm right. So I just want to put down the myth. I don't want what white people have. I want the opportunity to create my own. So you can live over there. The only thing I'm going to say is that I'm I live over here, you live over there. I believe that tall fences make great neighbors. So I believe that wholeheartedly. And what is inherent in what you keep saying is that somehow Black people feel that our communities are inferior to yours. I don't see that. I will say this, and probably in your specific incident, a situation, it was probably a lot of Hispanic people, but I'd like to see the people that built your fabulous, I understand it's huge and amazing home. I'd like to see the people that built it.
I want to tell you that it was not my intention to imply that I think that the white communities are better than the Black communities, but that's what I think in the back of my head. So Your inference was correct. So I'm going to think back. What did I say that revealed that? Because I didn't try to make that statement.
You didn't have to say it. You didn't have to say it. I listen to it every day if I watch MSNBC, Fox, CNN. It's inherent in every single sentence that comes out of people's mouths that were born in this country, because that's what we're taught. See,
Okay.
one of the things that I had to clock somebody, the person I was telling you about the conversation, they accused me of being bougie. I had to clock them. I have always lived in a Black neighborhood. Why?
Now, when you say
Because
clock
I'm
them,
Black. Where else should, let me say this. I'm Black. People want to be around people that they relate to. That is not a bad thing. However, it becomes problematic when schools are not funded at the same level. It becomes problematic when I have to drive 20 miles to go to the mall after Hurricane Katrina, because all of the economic redevelopment resources went to Metairie instead of New Orleans East, where we had the regional mall was. So they're going to take this disaster, use it to move the economic engine, a regional economic engine, into a white community. Those are the things that we're talking about. I don't need, if the mall is in my neighborhood, I'm happy because I don't have to drive to yours.
all right, very good. When you said that you had to clock somebody, does that mean you punched them?
No, it was a phone call, but I had to let them know that I will not apologize for being Black, because, you know, in my life, imagine, I'll tell you a quick story. This was hysterical. There's a WWL radio here. It's conservative white talk radio. They're very clear. They're very conservative. So, but it's call-in talk radio. So I called in, and a lot of Black people call into their shows. A lot of Black people listen. And I called in, I made my comment, and I'm listening afterwards. The caller after me says, I don't know who that was, but that was not a Black person.
Okay.
So I said, okay. And he went on, because this, that, and the other. And I called back in, and I said, this was Lloyd, the caller prior to the one before, but I need to go back on there because we need to get some things straight. I am definitely Black. I am definitely African American. And if you think that whatever that is to you, that's me. But do not tell me that my Blackness is less, because I know how to put a consonant on the end of a word. I'm saying that I bring all that up to say that Black is a lot of things in this country, but one thing it's not is jealous of white. Okay. We're not.
All right. You say that you're not jealous of whites, but do you ever experience Black privilege?
Apparently, I've been born into it.
Okay.
Apparently, I don't know, but I will say this: what's really funny to me is that white folks seem to not realize that we're very, very creative. My uncle, Aggie Limworm, founded the law school at Southern University. And the reason he did that was because nice little white people wouldn't let him go to white law school. So he said, fine, we'll create our own. All right. What folks didn't know was that school, which is still in existence today and thriving, started with one book and one desk. And when everybody said we need the resource, he said, you know what? Somebody read out loud, everybody else take notes, because we're doing this. Okay. What they didn't realize, my privilege the entire time I was growing up, is his wife, my Aunt Stella, my grandmother, who would have been her sister-in-law, and my mother and my aunt Bonnie had between them one set of dishes. Now you're the dean of a law school, and you have all kinds of people coming. You know, President Nixon reached out to him to give him a cabinet post. Okay, but he turned it down. Well, he actually died before a decision was made. However, I get distracted. Okay, the point is that, you know, he should have his own dishes, you know, because you know, the governor may be coming to dinner, or we have to put out, because we're all this in a bag of chips. Well, what we would do, my mother, her sister, my grandmother, and Aunt Stella, what they would do is they had a box built for these dishes. And when someone needed them, they would pack them in this box, put them on the Greyhound, and send them to the other person. And we're just all using the same set of dishes. And everybody thought we were wealthy enough to spend our money on a great set of dishes.
That's a very good story. And regardless of how much we'll disagree, I want to make this one point clear. I think that, yes, it is important for the dean of a black law school to have his own set of dishes. So
okay, well, not necessarily. I think that it's important for a dean of a black law school to have an excellent curriculum.
Okay, a set of dishes and an excellent curriculum. Very good. All right, well, the point is that I want to make is that a lot of white people claim that there's no such thing as white privilege. But when I go to a restaurant, I take my white kids sometimes, my white family, and I go to a Mexican restaurant or an El Salvadoran restaurant in a Mexican area, I notice that they treat me better. They treat me different. They treat me nicer. And oftentimes that they're so flattered that a white family will come into their Mexican restaurant. And I think that the blacks do not have that same privilege when they go into another area. When they'll go, if a black family will go into a Mexican area or an Oriental area or whatever, and they will get looked askance. They won't be looked upon in a higher degree. They're looked upon a little bit in a spooky manner. That's what I think. What's your take on that?
Well, first of all, I think it's an irrelevant conversation. And I say that because please do not compare me or my experience to those of Hispanic people. Because while they want to say that we have the experience, no, you did not endure capture, you did not endure slavery, you came over here, and some of you came in, I don't know, something just happened to my screen, but you came in legal, some of you came in legally, but the majority of you did not. And I was born here. So I think you have a lot of nerve. I'll tell you what, and I'm glad you brought this up, Bill. I was, very, very sympathetic to people in other countries coming here to get, quote unquote, a better life. Until it was about 2007, 2008, I was in California, and they were having one of those rallies for Hispanic folks. Were having a rally that they did for a while back in the early 2000s in California. And when I saw those people take the Mexican flag and put it over the American flag, oh, they were done with me. I was done with them permanently. And so when you try to compare me or my experience with particularly Hispanic immigrants or any other immigrant, nope, stop, wait, don't do it. They're completely different.
Okay, that's fine. That was not the point I was trying to make, but I understand. And I agree with you. You still see a lot of Mexican flags superimposed over or in replacing American flags, and so,
which tells me that the majority of this country that want to have discussions about immigration reform really are kind of idiotic. What do you think it means when they superimpose another country's flag over ours? Where's that going to go?
Okay, yeah, very, very, very good. All right, I think that in many respects, you could be the younger reincarnation of Robert Brock, the guy that I used to tour the country with.
Because a lot of people to go back to Africa.
Well, except for that, but there's except for that point, and that's something that's left there. I still reserve the right to convince you that that's a possibility. And you can.
No, but you never answered my question. My question was, okay, are we two countries or are we one country with people living with a fence between us? Which is going to be?
Well, I think that this is something for negotiation. I would start out saying that I want the bulk of America to be a white ethno state. And you'd say, well, no, let's divide it up. And I think I have a sneaky suspicion that maybe your position would prevail.
Well, let me say this. I am perfectly willing, based on not the 2020 census, but probably the 2010 census, I am perfectly willing to give you exactly what you'd like, because that would mean that we would get, of the 50 states, we would get, let's see, probably 8, 9 states, and you get the rest. But that gives me between 16 and 18 seats in the Senate. Let's see how that works out for you, Bill.
Okay, I can accept that approach, but instead of taking the 2010 census, let's take the 1810 census, and we'll divide it up then. That'd be pretty good for me.
I would be willing to say the 1890 census.
Okay, see, we're coming together.
Okay.
But what you said is something that I don't agree with, because you said that would give us a certain number of seats in the Senate. That supposes that it's going to be one Senate. We're going to separate. You can have 100% of your Senate.
So you want to go back to you want a Confederate States of America.
No, I want total separation. I don't mind even going
that's
back
what,
to the city
that's
state.
what the Civil War bill. That's what the Civil War fought about. There already was that at one point, and I think we pretty much put that baby to bed. Well, no, we don't want that. Now, I can, like I said, I can live next door to you and never come in your house. I will say this: well, first of all, I was going to say that I want to be able to visit Disneyland, but I believe that we as a community are so creative that we would build something that would be better than Disney World. And and history has shown that on many occasions. Like, we've shown that when we're left alone to our own devices and fairness in play, we thrive. We have communities that thrive. And then some white person says that, well, this black man looked at my white wife and I'm going to go get him. And the next thing we know, they're burning down towns, killing thousands of us. Can you say Tulsa, Oklahoma, Rosewood, goes on and on and on. So historically, you know, we've always done that. We didn't ask to move into your neighborhoods in Tulsa. We were building our own. It was better. White people thought we had too much.
There is one point that you make that is absolutely non-negotiable. Okay. We do not want Disney World and Disneyland. You get it. It's going to go to your community. We don't.
Oh, that's only because you think California is going to fall off into the ocean.
Well, whatever. It's because we can't stand Disney. So you can take that.
Okay.
All right. Anyway, this has been very productive. If this discussion was on a national scale, I believe that there would be a future for white people and a future for black people.
Well, let's take it on a national scale, Bill. I love it.
All right.
I love it.
I don't know how to do it. I've been trying to take things on a national scale for 40 years and I failed.
Bill, you have billions of dollars. You are one of the You live in was it Pacific Palisades? I think you live
in Pasadena.
But you live in some of the most expensive real estate in the friggin' world, not in the country, in the world. I'm sure you know the value of a good media person that can make this happen.
I've tried this over and over again. Well, I think that we have to, if we can find somebody, I think you and I would make a great foil. And one thing that I wanted to tell you, that I have had my shoe in my hand for a long time, getting ready to pound on the table saying, we will bury you. And I haven't had to do that. So this has been a pretty good discussion.
Well, see, like I said,
I do have Brian Kinter on the line from Springfield, Ohio, and he's somebody I've been discussing a national network with. Brian, did you want to say anything on this?
Oh, I'm just listening. I was trying to understand what the gentleman was saying there when he was saying, you know, about during slavery. And, you know, I was trying to comprehend is that did he himself embrace that, or he was looking for reparations because of what his ancestors endured? And, you know, I look at so many people of an African-American descent that have, regardless of the circumstances that they've been delivered, have rised above. And I believe that I don't see a white privilege. I just don't see it. In fact, I believe that what they've done is created a Holocaust, starting off with the Indians and then moving to the African American, where they've taken and set up the governmental programs to give mothers welfare, things like this, so that they could remove the father, and it's moving on over to the men. I think that overall we have to look at the systematic abuse of all, because there is no white race or black race. There's just a human race, and we all need to come together on the same common ground. We can't undo what happened yesterday, but we can learn from it, and we can make it a better tomorrow.
Can I address that first, please? Brian, thank you first. Thank you for calling in. But, and I hear you on the human race thing. I absolutely agree with you. Race is a man-made construct. That's fine, but it is the reality that we live in.
Bill is signaling.
Absolutely, I disagree. Everything that the caller called in said goes for naught. He has no valid point when he says that race doesn't exist. We're all part of the human race. That, excuse me,
I think that you're, like I said, I think it's the same thing as what we talked about earlier. I am a descendant of American freedmen. Barack Obama is not, but we're both Black. So we're all humans. The idea that we decided, I mean, we could choose anything to separate us. Are you saying that I haven't seen a picture of you and earlier in your life, but are you a blonde? Are you naturally blonde, or you're a brunette? Because we could, in fact, say that that's the deciding factor. Blondes are smarter than brunettes. That could be that's a construct. So the race is definitely a construct. It could say blue eye. If you have blue eyes, you have to be the slave. It could have been done on that. Whole bunch of things. So I agree with him on that, but the reality, the world that we live in that is not going to change, is that there is a white world and there's a Black one. And what this discussion is about is how do we bring the two together to coexist? I didn't say necessarily meld together, but we coexist. Brian also said something else that I wanted to address. Oh, that he never had slaves, or something to the effect that he never had slaves, and that we got all these programs and all of that. Well, let me see, Brian. You do benefit from slavery, because the whole point of slavery was not racial. It was economic. It was free labor. Bill, you're a businessman. What is your biggest cost in a business?
Slavery.
Labor.
Okay.
Labor. So now you're getting it for free. So Brian is probably asking me, well, how did I benefit from that? Well, you may not have. I don't know how long your lineage goes back into this country, but somebody who may have been working in New York, working in a pizza factory, bought a uniform for $1 that should have been $10, and he got to go to work and wear that uniform every day, get paid for it, and then he either rented a home or bought a home that was passed down to generation after generation after generation, and eventually Brian got to where he is today, benefiting from the labor of my ancestors there, and the labor that we still do. Because one thing that we have not discussed is the exception to the 13th Amendment. I want to talk to you about that one day. We might have to have a whole nother discussion, but that really needs to be discussed. So, because slavery is alive and well. So, Brian, while you may not have ever owned a slave, you certainly benefited.
Okay, Lloyd, I have the perfect comeback for everything you said. I'm out of time. I'm out of time, so I can't give it to you right now.
What about the Indians?
Go ahead.
What about them? They're sovereign.
No, Ezra.
Black people were never sovereign. If you gave us land and said, okay, this is yours, we're not going to bother you. Okay, when we built out our own land, like Tulsa, Oklahoma, we were building up Black Wall Street, and white people came in one day, just burned it down. You can't do that on a reservation. It's a federal crime.
Okay, well, this has been an enjoyable discussion. We will have to carry it on again.
Please feel free to invite me anytime. I want to do this national thing. I think, Charles, you need to send out this tape to everybody so that we get an audience, because I think that we brought up some real salient points. One is we have to define the discussion. I think we've done that very well tonight.
Okay.
I think it's a great start, and I want to thank you both. And the There was a bit of duel, and it threatened to turn into a bellum, but it didn't. And so we're off to an excellent start. Bill, thank you.
All right.
Thank you for
Thanks a
joining
lot.
us. Lloyd, thank you.
Good night, everybody.
And Brian, thank you for joining us also, but you should join us visually next time.
Right.
Talk to y'all later. Good night, everybody. Happy
Good night.
23rd of January. Well, that was interesting. It went much better than I expected and turned out to be much more productive than I expected. To my son at the University of Groningen in the Netherlands, I say happy 23rd of January. Good night, everybody. It's been a very interesting evening. Oh, and you know, here's a thought. I'm sitting in front of a photograph of a mosaic floor from Pompeii. It is black and white, but it was certainly built by slaves. I'd say there's a 99% chance that this floor in Pompeii was built by slaves. House of the Faun, one of the most elegant houses in Pompeii. But probably not one single one of those slaves who built this mosaic floor or any part of the House of the Faun was in fact black. I strongly doubt it. They were probably blonde hair, blue-eyed slaves brought in from Britannia or Gallia, or possibly even Germania, or Noricum, who knows. But they were slaves brought in from Northern Europe